Hi folks, it's Coach Kelvin here from the We Run Virtual Run Club and We Run Coach for Leeds and surrounding areas as well as online coaching. In this little video, I'm going to share some thoughts on a great question asked by Kerry in the We Run Virtual Run Club Facebook group. And the question is, when you're first starting out running with the intention of increasing distance over speed and intensity, at what point, distance, time on feet, should you start to consider nutrition and variation in run types? So I'm going to park the nutrition for now. I'm going to answer that in a separate video. So someone who's new to running, starting to build the volume, when do they start to vary their run types? And it's probably quite a lot sooner than people think. And let's use an example of an uninjured runner who is unlikely to get injured. So they're quite strong and not had any kind of injury history. One of the challenges with running, we always need a new stimulus, which gives the body a reason to adapt and get stronger. So quite quickly, that stimulus can kind of max out in places, and one of those places where it maxes out is volume. So a runner might train for, let's say for instance, kind of someone who's new to running, trains for 6 months, gradually adds volume for 4 months, finds that they can't really fit more running into the life, which is what happens. So they just continue at the same volume doing the same runs for another couple of months. So what will happen with that runner's fitness is, in the initial stages, running is a very strong and very new stimulus, so they'll get quite a sort of sharp increase, and they'll probably get, through month 5, probably a bit of sort of like maintenance, and then month 6 fitness will actually start to decrease as the body just gets very, very efficient at doing what it does. So I like to look at it, instead of just thinking about do we add different run types like intensity into training, we just need to add more load, and that can come in the shape of more volume, and it can come in the shape of intensity. Once a runner plateaus in their fitness and they don't seem to be getting any fitter, that's when it's worth sort of looking at your training and just making sure that you're not doing this sort of week after week, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. I think it's actually the definition of madness. I think I've mentioned that in a video before, that people repeat the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And how and what intensity. Let's say a runner doesn't want to add any more volume, they've sort of maxed out what they can do there. It's definitely a good idea to add some intensity. We can get lots of bang from our buck by adding intensity into somebody's running, but that really depends on the individual runner's goals. It might come in the form of kind of like interval style sessions, or it might come in terms of like sort of general themes, where you might have a theme for a training block, maybe for sort of 3 weeks, where the theme is on 2 of the runs just push a little bit harder on the uphills, and then we would assess that after 3 weeks and decide what comes next. The other thing that a runner could add into their training is strides. So I've spoke about strides before, and they're sort of very short bursts of 10 to 20, maybe 30 seconds of high velocity running with full recovery. So the sort of duration at intensity isn't enough to create too much muscle damage, so they're actually done as part of an easy run. So it might be that a runner starts to blend in maybe like 1 stride session a week, and then eventually after maybe 4 or 5 weeks build that up to 2 stride sessions a week. That helps with running economy, so the runner becomes more efficient, and therefore sort of, let's say, faster for using the same amount of effort. So we're going to blend in some intensity fairly early in a runner's career. We're probably going to blend in some strides fairly early, even if they're quite soft, and then we develop that over time. This allows a runner to get a better bang for the buck in terms of the time that they've got to train. But we do always have to bear in mind that once we then sort of layer in strides and intensity, then the way to get better is to do more of that. So we might then sort of add like more intensity and more volume at the same time. And the other thing that I kind of bear in mind with this is that, when people are fairly new to running, there's a really good chance that they're running fairly low volumes. And when we're running fairly low volumes, as long as we're not sort of injured, what we really don't want to do is just do it all super, super, super easy. Or certainly after those kind of initial, maybe like say 4 to 6 months of running. So if someone's training on fairly low volumes, they need some intensity in that. Otherwise, the training stimulus is going to be so little, it's going to plateau really quickly. I guess it could be a video that we do on how do we know if we've plateaued. But a runner might actually sort of almost have a bit of a gut feeling that they seem to be like, not really progressing anymore, or it might be they're looking at sort of pace against heart rate or sort of pace against perceived effort in certain sessions. I think I've done a video on tracking fitness. If I can find it, I will link it in the comments. If I can't find it, I'll do another one because it's a really interesting topic. So quite a lot in there. If you've got any questions, please pop them down in the comments below. And for now, happy running.